Welcome to the final lecture in our physical training from the Ancient Philosophers series. We've gone through three of the biggest hitters from the ancient philosophical world: Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. We've picked one golden piece of wisdom from each of those philosophers to think about deepening and extracting the maximum amount of value from physical training based on the good wisdom, sage advice, and sound prophecies of these ancient philosophers. Now, throughout this series, I've hinted at ways that you yourself can begin to apply these powerful lessons in your life. And this final lecture, to conclude the series, is going to be all about that application. So we are going to quickly just go over what we talked about in the previous four lectures. And if you haven't got a chance to take those in, it's not a bad idea to go ahead and just skip through each of those. These are short videos, and you should be able to get through them nice and quick and bring you to here. Because with the deep knowledge, now we get to make it real with our actions in the world. And that's where the real exciting part of this journey, I think, really begins, when it comes to you, your life, your physical training, and your deeper meaning and purpose that you're looking to extract out of these experiences. Okay, so as I mentioned, we've gone through a good amount of ancient philosophy, and again, I've basically just highlighted one key component of each of these philosophers, we'll say, gifts to the world in terms of their powerful ideas. And so I'll just do a quick recap here about what we've talked about, and then we'll get right into these big three lessons that I believe we can take from this investigation, and we'll end off with some practical ways that you can start living this stuff in your day-to-day lives. So the first philosopher we talked about was Socrates, and we looked at his idea of dialogue or dialectic or exchange, right? And that's that back and forth discussion between two individuals that is meant to root out inconsistencies and arrive at a consensus, and effectively is a mechanism to search for, uncover, and determine the truth of things, right? The second philosopher was Plato. And from Plato, we got this idea of artistic expression, aesthetic preference, and overall importance of beauty in revealing goodness and alerting us to the truth of things, right? So this is the way in which we move that makes us feel alive. This is the almost the unbridled enthusiasm we get when we see an athlete perform an incredible maneuver with their body that, exemplifies the skill, dedication, struggle, talent, achievement, excellence, passion of that particular athlete, right? So the beauty of our emotions can reveal the goodness, just as an exchange or an honest exposure to the truth in form of a contest, right? In sport, we have an opponent. So when we're thinking about these three philosophers, right, Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, and each of these elements, they're clearly directing us to some element of deeper truth, right? Plato with beauty, Socrates with dialogue, and our third philosopher, Aristotle, thinking about virtue. And virtue is the truth of who we are, right? Virtue, those are our good character traits. Those are the positive attributes that we are known by, not because we've done it one time in our lives, but because this is the consistent way that we act, behave in the world, or it's a consistent attitude or perspective that we bring to situations. And for Aristotle, the athletic arena is the place to display virtue, to incorporate virtue, to generate virtue within ourselves, because of that struggle, that sacrifice that we have to submit ourselves to in sport, but only if we do it for the right reasons, which is related to this idea of dialogue and beauty. And for each of these three core ideas from each of these three philosophers, we've been linking those to a deeper philosophical concept known as embodiment, where instead of thinking of the mind as more important than the body or the body as more important than the mind, we're seeking for a balanced harmony between mind, body, and spirit, because ultimately we are all of those things combined into one. And when we think about the honesty of the exchange, the importance of beauty, and the generation of character, the thing that we pointed to in the last lecture was that these all seem to aim not just at the body when it comes to physical training, sport, or athletic competition, but to our spirits, right? To the part of us that wills forward, to the part of us that is related to passion and interest and to love. And we've gone through these deep connections for each of these three philosophers. Now it's time for us to take the lessons that we've learned and apply them to our modern context. Ancient wisdom is great, but we can't just copy and paste into the modern world because we live in a different time, in a different context, with a different culture, and with different ideals of what it means to have an open exchange, what is beautiful, and what is virtuous. So without further ado, let's get to these three powerful lessons and how you can start applying the ancient wisdom of these ancient philosophers in your physical training today. So how can you become effectively embodied, which is this union between body, mind, and spirit, aiming towards moral excellence? Lesson number one. This one should be relatively clear by now, but sport isn't superficial. Sport isn't something that just happens in the body. Sport isn't something that we just do to win a game. Sport isn't something that we just turn on the TV in order to distract us or to entertain us. Sport isn't superficial. When we look at the ancient wisdom from these philosophers, they point out that sport is really a form of deep work for the self. It is a way to expose the honesty of who we are, where we're strong, where we're weak, where we deceive ourselves, or maybe we don't give ourselves enough credit. And athletic training is an important cornerstone of any type of self-improvement or self-development. Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle all believed that sports should be included in the education of children and ultimately practiced and performed by adults well into their old age. For this very reason, it allows us to continually improve upon ourselves in all of these different areas, in body, in mind, and in spirit. Aristotle, for example, when talking about the body, relates the beauty of the body to the ways in which it can move throughout life. So when we are 20, we aim our physical training at something different than when we aim it at when we're 40, and similarly when we're 60, when we're aging. But we are always training. We're always doing it in the service of beauty or a deeper purpose, or of a way to better explore, understand, and bring about the best parts of ourselves, even if that looks different throughout our lifespans. And the moment that we begin to probe deeper into its meaning, in a personal way, we end up revealing something that is extraordinarily deep and powerful. So when Aristotle tells us that sport is a place to uncover our virtues and to grow our characters, Plato tells us to appreciate the beauty and the truth of goodness that comes from an aesthetic appreciation. And Socrates alerts us to the fact that when we are honest in our exchange with the world, we receive benefits of truth and wisdom. The way in which we move our bodies ultimately reveals deep value about how we want to live our lives, because the body is not something that is just independent of these other parts of our bodies. So, the first thing that you should be doing to apply this deep wisdom from these ancient philosophers is thinking about the deep meaning and value you get from being physically active, training towards a specific goal, or having a particular why or a process that animates and motivates your training, and then maybe even jumping into the arena and competing yourself. You need to think deeper about what this can do for you. And one of the best initial questions is, why is this so important to me? Why is it so important that you engage in physical training? If your answer is simply to become better in physical health, well, that's a great starting point. But let me tell you something, that's not enough. Information about objective results is not enough to move people to act in the world. How do I know this? North America, 70% of people are overweight or obese. Now, in the past 40 years, have we gotten more information or less information about the importance of physical activity and exercise in maintaining a healthy body? We've gotten way more. There is more information out there for anybody about why it's important to exercise for your physical health. So we have the most information, I'm talking about like scientific studies, also proving that it's great for your mental health. So the most information and the least active people. So aiming at physical health is not enough, because people already know they're unhealthy, and they already know that physical activity is a way for them to become more healthy, and they're not doing it. Maybe that's you. Maybe you're not doing it. So you've got to get to deeper levels of inspiration, motivation, determination, which will allow you to then properly discipline yourself to stick with the difficult work of being consistent in physical activity and exercise. But what are you going to be connecting that to? Well, it's got to be something that's deeply meaningful and deeply personal to you. Maybe it's a particular movement you enjoy. Maybe it's a new skill or a new experience. Maybe it's related around travel. Maybe it's related around family. Whatever that looks like or feels like to you, you need to find it. So, lesson number 1, sport isn't superficial. How do you start applying it in your day-to-day life? Thinking about why activity, physical motion, movement, training, and competing is so important to you beyond the physical. Beyond the physical. Lesson 1. Lesson 2. Sport requires balance. It's not enough to just go all in on the physical training if it's going to make you a worse husband or father, if it's going to lead you away from your obligations and responsibilities at work, if it's going to make you a follower and not an independent thinker, right? So sport requires balance. Now, when thinking about this relationship between dialogue, beauty, and virtue, it doesn't mean that it's got to be like 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. It means that depending on where you are, you may need more dialogue in your life. You may need more beauty. You may need more virtue. But you should be cycling through each of these different areas when it comes to, let's say, a few years of physical training, right? So what about somebody who is, let's say, a few years out of the gym? What do they need in terms of this balance? Okay. The first thing that I would suggest is aim at beauty. You need the beautiful in your life first. You need that joy of motion. You need that love. You need that internal passion, the thing that you're interested in, right? That is going to then lead to virtue, the generation or the reaffirmation of positive character traits that flow into your person from this new motion that you are enjoying. You're going to love doing a particular motion that's going to discipline you to start training in order to become better at it, to acquire more skill. And then that discipline is going to begin to allow different virtues to start bubbling up and generating inside of you. And that might lead to the dialogue, right? Which then might be a competition. Maybe that's like a formal race or signing up for a league. Maybe that's simply you posting your workout results on social media for other people to see. And then you can start to get into that truthful exchange with the outside world when it comes to your internal activity in exercise and physical activity. And for some people, maybe the competition comes first. For some people, maybe they never get into the arena. I was somebody that ran trails for 9 years before I ever signed up for a race. But every single year, I was getting faster, I was going farther, and I was improving my performance because I had a strong internal competition with myself. And I had even structured out kind of like a few weeks at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year where I would be going for it in terms of like the PR for that year, either in terms of time or distance, but usually both by the end of the year. So it's not about a one size fits all answer either, right? We can't always be competing, but we can't not never be competing either. That's a really important component of this. It's that public performance, that's that honesty, that's that dialogue, right? It's where our virtues can be displayed and we can inspire other people to go after the better versions of themselves, right? So when thinking about the application of balance, in your life, we want to extract the maximum amount of value from the training. That's why we are diving deep into this ancient philosophy. We're not just interested in the superficial or just aiming at the body. We want it all. So we've got a balanced training. So that means results, right? We can't have training without the objective data, without the objective results. That's like taking away the dialogue, right? That's taking away the honesty of what we're doing. That's taking away the accountability of our actions in the world. But we cannot be ruled by results only. We can't go into the gym and think every time we're going to be smashing out a PR, or every single race has got to be faster and faster. Otherwise, we're failing, we're losing, and we're not gaining anything if we're not constantly seeing the numbers tilt in our way. And as we age, and if we want this to be like a lifelong endeavor, the numbers are eventually going to start turning against us. They're going to start mocking us. They're going to start laughing at us because we're not going to be able to compete with our younger self. So if all we're interested in is results, like, we're in for some pretty bad times, friends. We're in for some pretty bad times, and we're not going to be enjoying it unless the numbers match up. And that's just not a great place to be. We need the numbers, but we can't be ruled by the numbers. So what should come first? Passion, love, desire, the things that I want to do. But we can't just only have that. Like, if I ran trails for 9 years and I never recorded one of my runs, how would I ever know if I was really challenging myself, pushing myself, getting faster, getting better? So the passion's got to be, again, balanced out with the results, because part of the value of the training is that honest feedback that we get through the experience of our body that then allows us, right? Allows us to learn more about ourselves so that in mind and spirit, we can begin to work on weaknesses in those areas as well. So we want passion, but we also want that expression, right? In terms of creativity, imagination, joy. All right? So we need to be balancing the objective and the subjective, right? The facts and the personal, right? So when you are applying lesson number 2, thinking about the right balance of all of these different components for you with where you are in your particular journey. Again, if you're just starting out, probably not a great idea to go after results right away. You might be thinking, how do I express myself if I've been away for so long? All right. So again, it goes back to passion. Just like I mentioned, starting with beauty, start with love. Love is the strongest foundation you can build anything upon. And if we're looking to use physical training as a means of self-improvement and personal development, well, love has to be that foundation. All right, and lesson 3, final lesson. And I just said this word 1,000 times, and it's the one that undergirds it all. Sport requires passion, and when I say passion, I mean love. If you don't love it, you won't stick with it. Again, 70% of people overweight, obese. More information about the role of physical activity in reducing those health risks. People aren't doing it. So the mind and the body need the spirit to move when the mind and the body say, I can't, right? Love is what powers us through adversity. Love is what allows us to willingly sacrifice in order to gain something of greater value. It allows us to have deferred gratification. It allows us to see off into the horizon of the future and say, I need myself to be better there, so I'm going to start working on myself today. Sports are religious. They speak to our spirit. The union of body, mind, and soul as kind of like co-equal or codependent parts of ourselves, right? What that does, if we're looking to gain the maximum amount of value in our lives, is to aim at the spirit. We're privileged. You're watching this or listening to this on a fantastic electronic device. We live in an age where we don't want for the necessities of life. We have food, we have shelter, we have clothing, we have communities, we have families. So what's left for us to do? Go after the things that are important to us. That's the top of the hierarchy of needs pyramid, self-actualization. So when we find ourselves in a privileged situation where we can think about these things, we have a duty to develop them, because not all humans have this capability. And if we waste it and give it away, it's a bit of a disrespect to all of the souls who've never gotten a chance to go after it. So embodiment, using the body as a way to aim at mental and spiritual excellence, right? This is a spiritual endeavor. And when we are talking about the spirit, we're talking about love. We're talking about the irrational. We're talking about the thing that doesn't need all the facts aligned behind it, because there's faith in the action that you will just become. And if we are trying to extract out the maximum value, well, this is not something that's just going to be 1 year, 2 year, 3 year thing. We're not looking to yo-yo going from big to small, big to small, big to small. A year in the gym, 2 years out. A year in the gym, 2 years out. This is robotic motion, right? This is mechanic motion. This is go to the gym, target these muscles, move this way over and over repetitively, come back and do it again. Now, there are a lot of people who love that kind of motion. These are the people that turn into physical trainers, right? The people who love going to the gym, the people who love sets and reps and more weight, right? And progressive overload and 1 rep maxes. And that's great. More to you. Like, if that's what you love to do, then the gym is like your sanctuary. But here's the problem. I'd venture to say 9 of 10 people, maybe even more, it's not that we don't like those movements. We actively hate them. They do not bring us any sense of joy. There's no sense of enjoyment of those motions, and they simply become like a means to an end. Oh, I will lift the weights in order to get healthy, but I don't like lifting the weights. Eventually, you stop lifting the weights. Movement without meaning is robotic, and we are humans. We are subjects. We have hearts. We have desires. We have passion. We love things. We're not AI. So if we are utilizing physical training as a way to get better, well, it's got to be something we're doing all the time. And we've got to be willing to show up when we don't want to. And love is the most powerful force in the world in allowing us to do this. So lesson 3, sport requires passion. If you're not building the foundation of your physical fitness on love, it is a house built on sand and it will collapse. Okay? So again, think about that gut, think about that heart, think about what interests you, think about a dream, something you've never done before, something you've always wanted to try, something you wish you could do again. And that's where you should be aiming yourself. So, final reflection, and then a few tips on how you can do this yourself, right? We've got our 3 lessons. They all are pointing us towards the same kind of attitude, framing, and then ultimately our actions and behaviors that come out of that mindset. Sport is deep. It should be grounded in love and passion, our physical activity and our exercise. But we cannot go too hard into one area or another. We have to be kind of open to moving with the results, with the subjective experience, and understanding that there's a respect that has to be had for the balance that we need to bring to our physical training and exercise. So final reflection, and then a few tips on how you can start implementing this. The final reflection question is broad. And again, if you want to interact with me with your question, that's there's lots of ways for you to do this. You can put your response in the comments of the video below, and we'll just get into a conversation there. Inside of the video description, there's also information on how you can message me directly. So if you don't want to share publicly, but you want to get into a personal one-on-one where we can dive deeper into your particular answers, then just shoot me a message. Or you can simply write this in a journal or in a Word document, never share it with me, but utilize it in your own life going forward. So this one broad question: how will you aim yourself towards the full value of sport? And this full value of sport is the unification of body, mind, and spirit to aim towards spiritual and moral excellence, or the height of the pyramid, self-actualization, the best version of yourself, the maximum potential that you have in your life to develop your own talents and then to share them with the world in order to serve other people, make the world a more beautiful place, and inspire other people to go after their own dreams. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. Now, final tips. How can you start implementing this ancient wisdom from the ancient philosophers into your physical training? Well, if love is the foundation, and a lot of us aren't moving because we don't know what we love to do as adults anymore. We may have had a really strong sense of it when we were kids, but as you get older, there's more restrictions. Muscles in the body don't quite move as easily as it used to. So number one piece of advice, try new sports. This is exactly what happened with me when it came to trail running. I didn't like running, but I knew I needed to exercise a lot. And running is just one of those things that seemed to work with me. I'm not a fan of going to the gym. I'm not a big fan of resistance motions like lifting weights. I played soccer growing up at a high level, so running is pretty natural to me. I'm good at it. It's something I can do right outside my front door. I don't need a lot of equipment. This hits everything. So I remember the first time I actually went out running on the road and on some sort of paved river trails was really great. And then a friend of mine suggested, hey, why don't you go to this provincial park just outside the city limits and go for a run there? It's called trail running. Maybe you'll enjoy it. So I tried something new, and lo and behold, I got hooked on it. One thing that I see consistently in the adult space is people getting hooked on kind of like communal competitive environments. So things like jiu-jitsu, for example. I know lots of people who get into martial arts and then they find themselves rolling around and eventually competing. CrossFit, another great example. Powerlifting, strongman competitions. And maybe it's not, say, like running, but endurance, like cycling, swimming, triathlon, these kinds of things, right? So try new sports. We need to get away from the objective data rules the world of exercise mentality, where we're obsessed over the numbers, we're obsessed with tracking, we're obsessed with the number on the scale, with the number on the bar, with the number on the minute mile pace. Whatever the number is, that becomes the focal point. And when we start to become obsessed with the numbers, what happens? We lose the meaning, we lose the enjoyment, we lose the wonderment, we lose a little bit of that passion. So don't track every workout. Should be some workouts that are just for you. There are definitely runs that I go on where, well, spoiler, I never take my phone, but I do have a wearable. And sometimes I'm really happy when I forget to charge it, because that means I get to leave it in the car and I don't even have to track it. I can just kind of run free, and I can feel if I'm fast. I can feel if I'm slow. I can feel if I just want to go easy. I can decide to enter into the game of going fast. And when you forget about the numbers, you end up focusing on the joy of the motion, or of the technicality of the motion, or on a particular way you can improve your skill, or on a mental framing, right? It just brings you into a different experience. And so often, I think exercise is ruined by an overemphasis on the numbers. So don't track every workout. This kind of goes with the try new sports, but find a community who shares your passion. Once you find a love of something, it's difficult sometimes in the places that we live to find people who share the same passion. And there's something that is really powerful about surrounding yourself in the correct environment that is going to allow your motivation, your inspiration, and your ambition to intensify, to multiply, to grow exponentially when you're surrounded by people who are all pushing for the same thing and who believe similarly about why you're doing what you are doing. So it's very important to find a community. I mean, I got a lot of swag, but I coach on an online endurance training team, Tribal Training, which is a community of about 60 athletes, where we're all training for ultra endurance competitions, mostly triathlon, so Ironman and half Ironman distances, but also ultra marathons and ultra running. And the experience inside of our tribe, inside of our group, is phenomenal, because we're surrounded by people who get it, right? I don't have to explain to the people why I think it's cool to try to go run a 100-mile race in the desert. They think that's awesome. Go for it. I don't have to explain to the 99% of people who look at me like I got three heads when I tell them that. And they said, "Why would you even want to do that?" I never want to do that. I don't think I could. So therefore, why are you? It gets tiring. It gets tiring. But also, we are in the tribe utilizing this physical activity, training and competing, as a way to really aim at our best versions. Like, it's a living, breathing, I would say, experiment into the application that we've just been going through over the past couple of lectures. So if you are looking for what I would say would be the leading community in the world of bringing these ideals into action and creating a community that lives and breathes them, use that message function that's in the video description and ask me about if you can join up on our team and if you'd be a great fit. We'd love to have you. But it's very important to find a community. And then finally, keep experimenting until you've found what speaks to you, right? It's hard in the adult world. We've got responsibilities, we've got obligations. We may not have the opportunity to try the thing that is going to light us up on the inside. It took me a lot of time to find trail running. I stopped and I started with exercise maybe a dozen times before finally finding what consistently would work for me, which was anchoring my physical training in my love of trail running and wanting to get better at it. But again, that took me maybe a dozen false starts where I would be on for 2 weeks or 3 weeks doing push-ups and sit-ups and lifting weights and, doing maybe an elliptical or a stationary bike. And after 3 weeks, I'd be done, only to try to start up again in another 6 months and be done, right? So it's very important not to get discouraged if you are not finding immediate success. The most important thing to do is keep moving forward and keep trying, keep experimenting, keep being open, keep being creative. Take up any opportunity you can to move in a new, exciting way, or to really go after something you thought, hey, I'm not sure that's for me. Maybe it really is for you. And maybe you just need to open yourself up to the possibility or the opportunity that it could be exactly what you need to find that consistency that you've been looking for. Now, I hope that this series has been valuable to you in a bunch of different ways. Number one, learning about some of these ancient ideas, I think, gives us a sense of the historical importance and the intellectual weight of physical training. That this is something that the most serious and respected thinkers who've ever lived have spent a lot of time thinking about and applying in their own lives. So I hope you enjoyed the ideas from the ancient philosophers. But most importantly, I really hope that you are able to apply this in constructing a deep why, in utilizing creativity, love, passion, joy, and imagination in your physical training as foundational cornerstones of that training, that you are open to the honesty that physical training brings in terms of measuring up, not measuring up, being okay with looking at the parts of yourselves that aren't so great, but then endeavoring to use the lessons to get better, stronger, and more capable in those areas. And then ultimately through this sort of struggle of passion and love and sacrifice, finding the beauty of the potential that you have in this world, right? And breaking free from self-imposed limits that you've placed upon yourself that says, I can't do this. I won't ever become that person. I shouldn't try to do this. But ultimately, it's about lighting that spirit on fire that's inside of us so that you can live by deep principles. You won't be pushed around by social conventions or social pressures, and that you'll truly begin to live life for yourself and aim towards the excellence that you believe you can achieve, deserve to achieve, and should achieve so that you can make the world a better, more beautiful, and more honest place for all of us to live. And athletic training, physical training, competition, that is the activity to help you bring all of that out inside yourself. I hope I have helped you start your journey. If you are looking to move a little more quickly and with the guidance of a coach who both understands this and who would love to guide you through it, then again, there's that messaging button in the descriptions. Send me a note. Let's get into a conversation. And I would love to help you realize all of this potential within yourself so that you can start living the life you deserve.